Says I'm live, so maybe I'm putting scary eyes just for a few seconds. Hello and welcome to the LOP Radio RAW review. As I just click over there, There we go. For the LOP Radio RAW review. My name is Matt Maher, aka Imp, and we are here today on LOP YouTube and also available in podcast form. Links in the description, or head over to wrestlingheadlines.net. This week I'm joined for the first time to have a guest on the RAW review edition. I've had NXT, I've had previews and whatever. But it's SummerSlam week, let's make it special. I'm joined by Chairshot Radio's Kayfabe Ray Cash, Sir Rance a lot, Rance Morris. Hello and welcome to the show, Rance.
What's up, man? Good to be back on with you. I appreciate you and your quite esteemed introduction.
I didn't practice it. I practiced Sir Rance a lot. Because in my regional accent, it's Rance a lot. And I was like, no, I need to up it a bit. Make it a bit posher. So Rance a lot with the gesture and everything.
That's the first time I've ever been said I need to be a little posher, so I'll take that.
I think beforehand I was like, I could put something in there, him being the knight of the edge table or something. I was like, that sounds a bit weird. I'll just the edge table. Yeah.
It works for me.
Yeah.
It works for me. Yeah.
It would mostly be run by the two of you, and then Curve would show up every now and then and do something. It's just, you right, Curve?
Well,
yeah.
Well, you know, Curve never shows up, so that's part of the gimmick.
If you've listened to me for a while, you will know Rance more than well. If you've tuned into Chairshot, you know Rance more than well of the Outsider's Edge and multiple shows over there as well. And he's been a semi-regular on my own products and stuff over the years? I can't remember. There was a long period of time where we talked to each other, and then eventually I was like, I've not had you on. So I invited him, and he's been a regular ever since. But this is the first time in the, I guess I call it, LOP Radio YouTube era where I'm doing all this video stuff. I'm moving my hands all over the place. I'm wearing red t-shirts to be on camera with the red and everything. Luckily, my local sports team, Nottingham Forest, play in red. Massively convenient. So I've got a load of red shirts. I'm fine. It's yellow I'm screwed for. I've got nothing for NXT. Absolutely nothing. Anyway, that'll be a massive tangent. Talk about what shirts I could buy. So he's been a regular on my show over the course of the years, but first time here for Monday Night Raw, and it's to end an era. Just to put it so poshly, he was laughing beforehand. He's like, is it really the end of an era? Does it really worse? Does it really need to be celebrated? Leaving the WWE Performance Center, they become fond of the plexiglass, or the bashing of the plexiglass. Now you'll get the Thunderdome starting this Friday with the...
What are the names?
Oh, yes. I like the name in terms of marketing. I think it works really well, especially as they'll be bringing so much pyro. It should fit the name in a way. I've not personally seen... I've only seen the odd screenshot of like the people calling in by the screens. I saw Lil Wayne high-fiving somebody. That is my extent of seeing the virtual fans on the screens. I've not seen that. Literally, that's it. We've not done that over here or anything to that kin. You know, we've just been empty stadiums with like fake crowd noise piped in if you want. Some not optional. I don't like the fake crowd noise. And tangent. So this is the kind of end of era for the faux crowd. Next week we'll get proper people calling in. I don't know what it's going to be like en masse. I've not watched the NBA or anything like that, so I don't actually know. I've not seen it in play, so I'm not quite sure how it works in terms of atmosphere, in terms of generating noise. But personally, it's weird. This PC era has been both a bit odd and a bit strange, and a few things that I maybe didn't connect with, but also I think I'll reminisce on it fondly. It's a weird one. It was quite a unique time, quite a I was going to say kind of niche kind of period for wrestling where they started to appeal to a lot more of the kind of hardcore base, as the casuals seemingly were not going to tune in to WWE, and it was like the hardcore fans who tune in every single week. Same thing like with Wednesday. It's turned into essentially the Wednesday number put together. Most Mondays it's a good Wednesday number, just to say that Raw is still like the bigger. But there is that feeling that the casual fans weren't tuning into Raw. They've tuned out for this no fans era. They've done little things like they put up the plexiglass to have people on the outside, where they were essentially press a button and they make a noise. They were essentially robot crowds. It's a little bit weird.
Real life piped in noise, yeah.
Yeah, like it's hard to get behind Shotzi Blackheart dancing with all of her heart when it was very likely like one of those old TV shows, older music shows where they just tell the crowd, like, we need you dancing on camera. Dance now. And they do that.
The old school applause sign.
Yeah. So it's hard to get behind, like, when Fox are tweeting, it's like, oh, yes, yeah, are you feeling it? Like, Shotzi? It was like, I don't know if she was feeling it. I just watched that and think, the applause sign is up. That doesn't count. It's not genuine. Plus, all of the safety reasons for doing that completely scrapped when the Street Profits just dance within them. When they first did that weeks ago, I think I hadn't started this yet. So luckily I wasn't able to have a mini rant about it. But it's all right. It's fine. It's fine. My own country's opening up. I can't really talk about, oh, my country's so much better. It's not. We're also crap. It's not going super. Anyway. There's that massive disconnect again between reality and what the government are saying. So you have to check 2 different sources. And sometimes you just don't have time. So you lose attention and you hope your parents, who are both retired, are following it. So they can then tell you. Anyway, that's another massive tangent. I'm doing well. I've hardly let Rance speak at this point. So do you have any kind of your final memories then on the PC era? Do you look back on it fondly, or is it? What are your opinions? I won't put any words in your mouth.
I appreciate the innovation. I appreciate the fact that they gave a damn to try. I mean, don't get me wrong, wrestling by no stretch of the imagination is essential. So, like, if they would have shut down, oh well, right? We'd have figured something else out to watch. You know, I got Netflix and all this other stuff, but I appreciate that they tried, and I appreciate that they every single time something happened that someone said, "Hey, this will be better," or someone did something that would be better, or they messed up, they changed. They fixed it. You know, they had the COVID outbreak, which they deserve they deserve to be admonished for days, years, and not a kingdom come. They fixed it. Okay, good. There were complaints that this isn't the same without any people in the crowd. AEW had people in the crowd. Made sense and it worked. They did that. It was a little better, right? So I appreciate that they tried. Okay, it'll be weird because I'm very much a WrestleMania kind of historian. So my years are based on the WrestleMania of that year. That's how I remember things of the year. And it's going to be weird to think back like 10 years from now on a 2-night WrestleMania in an empty arena, like, you know, where they train. It's going to be very weird. But, you know, it almost feels like watching your favorite band do that one show in like the really, really rinky-dink bar in your neighborhood, and they'll never do it again, but it was like really cool to see it, but you don't ever want to see it again. So like I'd be very happy to never see them at the PC ever again, but it was cool while it lasted, you know? Like
my kind of stuff I'd do before this whole wrestling thing, or before I had to get like it got consumed because I had to get like an actual paying job and that kind of took time, and then that's when this kind of popped up. But I used to film interviews with my brother with stand-up comedians. And we'd go over to one of our local clubs. I guess shout out to the Glee Club in Nottingham for letting us do it. We'd go to the club and they'd let us interview the comedian. We'd ask beforehand, obviously, and then get in touch with the agents to make sure that we could actually do it, got permission. And so it's that kind of feeling where it's the people you'd see on television, but then we were watching them in like the brick-backed walled. It's the same over here. We've got the brick walls of stand-up comedy. And maybe sometimes we'd watch their set and then we'd interview them on like a second stage kind of area. And it's that similar feeling of seeing the people which are like getting hundreds of thousands of views on YouTube nowadays. But then we think so fondly of that little time in that little sweaty room. It's this bricked up wall. And maybe it's just a one-on-one chat, and we're filming on crappy cameras with lighting that didn't fit, and microphones that were just picking up loads of noise. Well, think about it fondly in those little times. However, to think that would be getting that week after week after week after week kind of thing with, and what they were waiting for was to be able to go back to those big 100,000 viewing YouTube video things eventually, kind of spinning the wheels until they can go. And personally, I think what they're saying with the Thunderdome kind of it fits everybody. Like, you get out of the performance centre and back into those big arenas. You don't massively risk COVID outside of your own company, because obviously every time they wrestle, they are risking COVID. But like the fans, you don't risk it for the fans, which is kind of like a massive number one priority. Cough, cough. Right. Jericho Cruise. Why are you doing the Jericho Cruise? It's that tangent. It's not. They're still doing it. October. It's crazy.
Well, if he did Sturgis, he don't give a damn about the cruise, so we know that.
Yes, he did the Fozzy tour. Or I know he did at least one Fozzy show, and there were adverts for more.
Oh, those 4. There were 4.
Yeah, and I think he was saying something like, "Oh, wash their hands before they went in." It's like, it's not. It's not. I mean, it's better than nothing, but again, you probably shouldn't anyway. Anyway, I digress. That'll be a massive tangent. I need to make an AEW show on here like this just so I can rant about random things.
So you're gonna get a multicolored shirt for AEW? Oh, you got the red.
I've got to do that. Yeah, I haven't got anything. I've got a T-shirt. There's a character in Borderlands video games. There's a character called Handsome Jack, and I've got a T-shirt of his unicorn. So that's the closest I've got. The unicorn's called Butt Stallion. It's a diamond unicorn with a rainbow coming out his butt. So that's the closest I get. Yeah.
That's very mature and beautiful.
And it's just PG enough for YouTube. It's just PG enough. Just makes it on. I don't think I've managed to stay clean language through any one of these shows, but I do my best. I'm English, and this is daytime American TV standards. That's like, to me, that's just so harsh. It's like in fact, from 9 p.m. onwards, we have open swearing on our TV, and like you're on panel shows and everything. Like, we'll have open swearing. Like, it's fine. Like, who cares? But whenever an American sees that, it's kind of like, what, they're swearing on television? That's crazy. Like, yeah, like, who cares? It's fine. But we do also have this thing called the watershed, where everybody knows from 9 p.m. that's not really for kids. It's known nationwide that that's the point, which is quite smart. It's quite clever. It means you can get your swearing in, and you're never at risk of, or what if it's not suitable for my kid, because you're flat out told no, it's not. End of. Takes the argument question out of it.
Well, you guys seem to listen to rules over there. That's kind of our problem. We don't.
Yeah, you do have to actually obey to stuff. It's like whenever we did Live 8 and was performances from the different countries, they didn't listen to those rules. They just did what they wanted. It's like, it's 3 p.m. You don't swear at 3 p.m. That's the rule. Anyway, but again, massive tangents. I'm doing so well. I've got so many notes as it is. I really shouldn't be going on all these random tangents that have absolutely nothing to do with WWE and Raw. But I think I'll look back on this time fondly. Again, little tweaks and things which I maybe didn't like the Kevin Dunn production really got a spotlight on it during this period, where quite often it would be way too much. Raw Underground as well is another one where I found it almost unwatchable. We'll get to it when we actually get to Raw Underground, but yeah, the production I felt has had a lot of kind of more focus put on it because there isn't that live crowd to cut to. It said you might have Shotzi dancing if you're lucky. Aside from that, it's just random people in the crowd just... what were they called in Star Wars? Is it the Sand People, where they're just like that? Just making that noise. I think that's it, yeah.
Bugenhagen. Shout out to Bugenhagen out there losing his mind.
Oh, he guitar riffs at everything. Doesn't even have to have a guitar in it. He's just riffing in the crowd.
Yes.
Keep an eye. He is entertainment. Just keep an eye out for him, like in any wide shot. You'll see him. Shout out to he and Shotzi, and to be fair, Shafir and Duke put in quite a strong effort in these shows.
Yes, they do. Yes. So, they're trying to earn those checks. That's what they're trying to do. Yeah. They're trying to earn those checks.
And now it's paying off. They get to stand beside somebody whilst the other person does the ass kicking, but they're there. They're beside them. But yeah, so in terms of the PC, it's kind of... We've had our time, but I'm not exactly sad that we're leaving. It's nice. I'm excited for SmackDown. And that's as somebody who hasn't watched SmackDown for weeks, if not months, during this. Like, that's the show that's fallen off the wagon. I've had a lot of my time cut away from me thanks to lockdown. Like having to like look after my parents, I've had to go and get their food for them and all the supplies and things. So that's cut. Like looking after them's cut a lot of my time out. And SmackDown's the thing that's fallen by the wayside. I'm not watching AEW till a Sunday, which is massively convenient this week because it airs on a Saturday, so I'm watching it in time now. But still, like my time's been messed around with, and SmackDown's the thing that's fallen by the wayside. And I'm going to make time for it this week because there's the phrase "when there's a will, there's a way," and evidently that shows that previously I've not had the will. But now that I kind of want to see what the Thunderdome is like, I will try and do my best to make time for it. It looks interesting. But the PC, that's what I'm reminiscing on. The plexiglass was, of course, I feel like that noise of the plexiglass will be one of the most synonymous things with this era. Be it them bashing on it, it being used as a weapon, what have you. And I guess, or just the overall kind of aura of the PC Centre. I feel like those early shows where there's no crowd will probably in the future be really weird to watch, like WrestleMania, like Rance was saying. But like the kind of feeling of it now, with the format that they've fallen onto. Same with AEW, where they've kind of found their niche and how they like to produce it. It's like, yeah, like I reminisce on this time quite fondly. Like I connected with a lot of the characters. Like Drew McIntyre became an amazing champion during this. The women absolutely stole the show. They're my favourite thing on WWE right now. And I'm really excited to see how that translates to those bigger arenas with pyro, with drones. I'll see what that means with the augmented reality.
Yeah, drones.
So, is it just hopefully it's just to pan the LED boards with the fans on it, just so they can actually pan that a bit better. I'm not sure if I want a drone hovering above the match.
This is Vince McMahon and Kevin Dunn you're talking about. Don't hold your breath.
Kevin Dunn with drones, my God, that's gonna be something. Oh dear. Oh. So let's get that thought. I'll brace for Friday. I'll see what it's like. It's bad enough as it is. But anyway, but that's the reminiscing about the PC Centre. Let's get on to the topic of the video. Yes, that's right. I spent 15 minutes talking about something else. Onto the actual topic. Will Drew McIntyre beat Randy Orton at SummerSlam in the main event and to retain his WWE Championship? I've seen a lot of mixed opinions on this, which is kind of why for me personally, I thought, you use this to build Drew, and Randy Orton can take the loss. He's big enough as it is, and you can do something which then moves him onto his next story or brings him back to Edge or something. However, when you have the other argument I've seen, as I'll ask you if you agree with it as well afterwards. The other argument I've seen is that you very rarely get, it's maybe like every 2-3 years, you get Randy Orton on the kind of form he is on now, and this is the form you make him champion on. Like, you run with it, because in a year's time, he won't be at this level. He'll be not the level he's at now. It's kind of like a kind of cycle he'll go in. We'll have 1 year where he's absolutely incredible, and then he might kind of take it back a little bit the one afterwards. So you put the belt on him now, you try and get that live pop for McIntyre winning it back, and you kind of, you don't have McIntyre go into the era with the belt. You have him try and get back to it whilst Randy Orton's evil man on top. What are your thoughts, Vance?
Well, so I've heard both of those. I've heard even a few other ideas. My only problem with you take it off of Randy and put it back on Drew when we have live fans is there's no telling when there's going to be live fans. So, if we knew anything, the only country that I've seen that has done this 100% the right way is New Zealand. Because New Zealand is, completely back to normal, right? Everybody else is still in some form quarantining or in some form dealing with the virus in some way or form or fashion, and here it's still spiking. I live in Houston, Texas, and we are a hotspot. We have a shelter at home order. I've been off work. I mean, I'm working from home, but I've been working from home since March, and there's a chance I might not go back to January. So you're talking about fans, I just don't see it. So you can't factor in your decision. Going kind of deeper into the options, or in Drew in more particular, or Randy rather, it's difficult for me because Drew Drew's reign has been, in my opinion, so good because it's refreshing to see a babyface that isn't scared. It's refreshing to see a babyface that's not an underdog, but yet like is willing to fight. Like Drew will start to fight happily, but from a valiant way, right? Like I've always called him William Wallace in a sense because he fights like he's got the whole country of Scotland on his back. So it's refreshing with all the like the underdogs we've had to deal with, or baby faces who aren't really baby faces, but the crowd like them, so they got to rock with it at baby face. Drew's done everything right and been excellent, but every single feud he's had, like you could make an argument the other guy should have won, with the exception of Ziggler. Like Rollins was on fire when they wrestled. You can see Rollins winning, right? Bobby Lashley was on the run of his career, resurgence wise. He could have won, right? So with the Randy Orton thing, I'm torn because I love Randy, and Randy is the most infuriating wrestler I think I've ever seen in my lifetime because nobody is better. Randy could make. Oh, and I'm just ready for hot take number one. Since you've had 3 tangents, can I have a hot take?
Yes, you can. Yes.
If Randy was motivated 24/7, 365, we wouldn't be talking about Okada the way we talk about Okada. Randy could do that any day of the week. He just doesn't care, you know? But he seems, for whatever reason, to be motivated now, which is a beautiful thing for us watching. That's no diss to Okada. Okada's the best in the world. No diss. So I think what should matter and what ultimately always should matter is the good of the story. Do we need to see a story where Randy runs roughshod over the roster until Edge comes back? That's till Mania season, so that's at least 4 or 5 months. If we do that, who will Randy face? In the meantime, what other faces do we have for him to be fed to him? If we do that, what will Drew do? Will Drew, because he's beaten everybody that stepped up to the plate, what will he do? Are we going to have, like Braun and Bray, where we have 3 months of this incessant rematch after rematch after rematch where nobody gets over? Are we going to do that? Which is going to help anybody? I think Randy's character, I don't think Randy's character needs the belt more, but it needs the win. And I know that's a very weird dynamic. It doesn't need the belt more than Drew's does right now. Drew's character needs the belt, but Randy needs the win more because he's not gonna lose any steam. Randy Orton is in that level where that legend level where if he could be beat by anybody, R-Truth could beat him clean tomorrow and nobody would care. We'd laugh about it and then we'd go on back about our lives. But this run he's on, he's near untouchable. You know what I mean? Like if you watched, I know we're gonna get into this stuff a little more intricately, but at the end of Raw, Drew finally caught him, and at the end of the night, Drew was laying. Like that's the run that Randy is on right now. So I'm torn because you can't go wrong with either way. I just need to see how they're going to give it to me because just because you can't go wrong doesn't mean you can't do it wrong.
Yeah, that's why I'm semi-conflicted. If it was to do a kind of prediction of what would happen like today, I don't think I'd be able to answer. I want to say Drew, but I think that's more because of years and years of that feeling of WWE need to put a new star over. And I feel like that's why I want Drew to win. But in terms of character momentum, in terms of carrying that forward, what kind of to keep viewer interest as well after SummerSlam, how do you reinvent it? Like I said, well, I think it was like a couple of weeks ago, I said that after WWE do this feud, like Drew McIntyre's got nobody else to feud with. He's done all the top guys. And even though I really want him to stay champion because he's been such a good champion, and with the world in limbo, it really sucks if his entire reign was this limbo period, and as soon as it ends, it goes to Randy Orton. Like that kind of would suck. But also, I can see, like character momentum wise, if you continue to watch the shows like we have, that Drew McIntyre could very easily lose just because I would 100% do everything I can to keep this streak of Randy Orton's going because his character is fantastic and the momentum that it's building and building and building week to week to week, There's nobody else anywhere near that level. In terms of when we were all predicting who was Drew McIntyre going to face at SummerSlam, immediately it comes to your mind, well, Randy Orton, because there's nobody else on that level to main event with him. But then he conflicted it again. It's but I don't want either guy to lose. So that was my kind of only con. But that's something I've praised New Japan for in the past. Is
those are what you want.
Yeah, the characters are both built so damn well that I don't want either one to lose, but I'm also fine with whichever one wins. And that's often where I've seen WWE drop it before, is when you go into the match, you may like both guys, you may like both wrestlers or whatever, but because of character momentum and story, there's normally one guy you do want to win, and the other one, you're not. In terms of the main events and SummerSlam and the big thing. Maybe that's because Brock Lesnar's held the title for so long that that feeling feels very familiar. You really want the other guy to win, which is... It was good at first, because that's the feeling you want the viewer to have. But after a while, where it was every year, you come back to the same scenario, it's kind of could you... come on, it's been 5 years. Please could you move on from the Lesnar destroys the person, and then you get the title moved on at a big show. It felt like it was time to move on.
Well,
but
let me tell you how good Orton is. Let me tell you how good Orton is. Orton is so good that Orton and Rollins right now on the Raw brand are doing some of the most despicable heel work we've seen in a while, right? What Rollins did to Dominic last week was true story. Just looking at the body, it was worse than what Sandman did to Dreamer back in 96. Just look at the body, and that was a defining moment for ECW and Dreamer. It was that bad. And the things the way that Orton turned on Ric Flair last week was despicable. You know what I mean? But they're so good that we're Randy's good now. We like it. So it muddles the waters a bit because, especially in WWE, for so many reasons that we don't have time to get into today, that we should will be thinking, well, damn, Drew got to win this. Drew's the man. He stands up for good. He will happily fight anybody. He'll put the title on the line for anybody at any time. You should want Drew to win, but then we see Randy on the run of his life, and we're like, well, no, Randy's pretty good right now. So it muddles the water. But Randy is despicable right now. We shouldn't like him at all.
Yeah, I'm just remembering I didn't put my little invention on my light. So that's just, I was like, yeah. Oh, the light. Damn it. It doesn't matter. Vance is the only person watching this who gives a crap about that sentence. It made me laugh. That's just, damn it.
Inside jokes, yes.
Yeah. I feel like that's the time to kind of transition to... I feel like we could go on about this forever just because there's a whole show dedicated to... to be fair, when New Japan did this with Okada and Tanahashi, I wrote about 4,000 word columns on each guy about why, and I feel like I could do the same here for Orton and McIntyre. No, if I had time, I've already explained, I don't have the time to do it. But there's so much to it, and both guys have been built so well that I don't mind which guy wins. I like both paths. And of course, we're entering a new era of the Thunderdome, where we don't know what's going to happen. I'm picturing so much fire. Obviously, the Mad Max tie-in. It's just so much practical pyro and sets and things. So yeah, I think they've
when the show opens.
Oh yes, they're going to go crazy. They're spending, was it 500,000 just to rent the place? Never mind what they're going to do with the rest of it.
So, all things considered, that's really cheap compared to what they would do touring, because they're renting 4 or 5 different arenas a week. And they only have to pay 450, 500,000 a month. That's really cheap compared.
Well, if I'm right, it's even better because it was for 2 months worth of content. If I'm right, they got it for that. That's even better. But of course, the stadium's not had anything. Genius. Yeah, the stadium's not had anything. They get to pay all their workers as well to get the actual thing running. It's it's a win-win for everybody, and at a stupidly cheap price compared to. It sounds like a lot on the face of it, but it's when you would if you imagine they would book 2 months worth of venues and then you see if that adds up to that amount. I think that's when you'd see how good a deal this is. Obviously, for one venue, it sounds like a lot, but trust me, it's not. It's not a lot. It is a lot. Yeah. Anyway,
venues, travel, workers. It's so much easier.
I forgot about all the other stuff as well. Carting all your stuff around the country because you got the massive Titantrons. Never mind the rest of themselves. But I feel like it's a decent time to kind of cut in with what the main event was with the Drew McIntyre, Randy Orton, and Shawn Michaels segment. To kick it off, they repeated Ric Flair's story from last week. In my notes, I wrote last year. I was very tired today and easily, blatantly distracted. He was talking about the 31 days he spent in the ICU and kind of we were repeating that just to make sure that everybody's up to date. But this time it was repeated from the perspective of one of those people that Ric Flair talked to in Shawn Michaels. He says to Randy, like through the camera, not directly, even though he had the greatest wrestler in the world mentoring him, he didn't appreciate him. That on Sunday, what he's got coming for him, be it a sweet chin music or a claymore, he will see it coming. Got to get the catchphrase in there. It's not just SummerSlam.
Oh, yeah, marketing. Yes.
I think, as I said like a couple of weeks ago, when I put out the aftershock for SummerSlam, I'm not calling it SummerSlam, you'll never see it coming. No, it's SummerSlam 2020. I'm not putting in the tagline. It's too much. Like, Google SEO will not care about that bit. It will just be SummerSlam. It's fine. It'll be all right. Anyway, Orton suddenly out of nowhere with an RKO to HBK. McIntyre sprints out. I can't remember if he hit the punt. I swear there's
Don't forget the punt.
He did hit the punt. Right, I was a bit confused because I saw HBK kind of conscious moving about, and I was like, we can't have hit it then. But if he did, it's fine.
Yes, we'll talk about that. Yes, because that made me angry.
Right.
Viscerally angry.
Because I'm writing notes, sometimes I just miss stuff, which is evident with that one. McIntyre sprints out before any more damage can be done, protecting the man so the ref can get to him. Obviously, it's what was the kid's name? Connor's dad. Was it Connor who won the tag team championship with Braun Strowman?
Oh no, Nicholas,
that's it. Yeah,
Nicholas. Yeah, John Cone. John Cone.
That's it. Yes, Nicholas's dad runs out to help Shawn Michaels, and Orton kind of tries to take advantage of McIntyre's distraction, but Drew's on it, and the two brawl. And McIntyre, as Rance has already hinted earlier in the show, got the better of Orton, launching him all over the place. Plexiglass, commentator booth, what have you. He just destroyed Orton here. But when McIntyre went back in the ring to check on Michaels, Randy was eventually back in again and spins the Big Scott round for an RKO. And it's Drew McIntyre lying on the mat at the end of the show, kind of crawling back up on the ropes with an angry face. And in a similar final run of shots to last week, I've called it a pretty quick segment because it's like 5 minutes overall. Ends with Randy Orton looking down the ramp and McIntyre staring up in anger. But this time it was about a minute shorter, so it hit the point and didn't linger for too long. Last week, it was those two staring at each other for about 2-3 minutes. It's like, your show's ended, but you've got 3 more minutes to go, so just keep looking at each other, keep cutting, Kevin. Keep going, it'll be alright. This week's was better. A tight 5, and it built really well, and you got the final before the pay-per-view look at each other. As a final kind of segment, personally, the whole show felt a bit fillery to me. I'll get to why when we hit like the beat for beats, but this one felt like a kind of repeat of last week. I say kind of, it's Randy Orton attacks another legend, obviously this time without the mentor kind of tie to it. It's like a legend ripple effect, I guess, for a legend. So that's what I mean by kind of like filler, where the story was perfectly fine without this. Nothing was really added, apart from, for me, the really important part of seeing Drew McIntyre get the better of Orton. Because we hadn't really seen that up until tonight. And I feel like that's a really important note that they hit before the pay-per-view, so you don't go in there expecting Randy Orton with the domination and maybe Drew gets something in. Like, no, as we were saying earlier, it's fantastic seeing Drew McIntyre as a babyface that's A, not stupid, and B, can take the fight to the heels without needing all the pluck and courage in the world. So no, it's because he's a tough bastard. Goodbye monetization. But I really liked that one particular thing. Compared to that, every other note was kind of a repeat of last week, kind of continuing it again, like a ripple rather than a genuine leap forward for the story or final big note before the pay-per-view. Because I feel like the Ric Flair segment was the big note, and this week was a ripple effect from that massive moment. But yeah, what did you make of
Okay.
this final segment?
So I see that. I looked at it a little differently. The way it looked like to me was, well, first and foremost, we all knew that Shawn would just pray in the ring, right? Like, it was inevitable until he got, right? If you look at almost all of Randy's feuds since he started this Apex Predator Viper persona, like, they're all kind of built around some type of stalking type theme. And it's always comes back down to the RKO and the fact that it is the one move that can be hit out of nowhere. I mean, that's the tagline, right? To speak to what you were saying earlier. So it felt like he knew when Shawn was coming, that Randy knew that I can attack him to draw Drew McIntyre out so I can get Drew. Because last week had nothing to do with Drew. Last week I feel like he was cutting the dead weight, But this week he knew he had to get one up on Drew, and the only way to do that is to attack the legend who came out to stand up for Drew and Rick on their behalves. So, and that's why to me, when he did it, when he RKO'd him and punted him, and he slid out the ring so fast, that's why to me he came back. Because he was done. He was gone. But then he came back to get Drew, then proceeded to get beat down for about 2 minutes, and then slid back in and got the RKO. So it felt like that was almost kind of a very kind of twisted plan to get one over on Drew. And the tagline for the show is, you'll never see it coming. Randy's out of nowhere. And you said it perfectly. Drew had to get something, because Drew hadn't done anything physical all feud, right? And to be fair, they hadn't touched. Neither guy had touched, to be fair, all feud. But every week, Randy is beating this guy, or he's punting this guy, or he's beating this guy. So I think it did its job that we needed to see Randy get beat up to know that Drew can actually put the boots to him. But you never can forget that you turn your back for a second and Randy can strike. And I think they told that story pretty well. Shawn Michaels is my favorite wrestler of all time. I don't like the term stan, but I am a Shawn Michaels stan. Like, there's not many people that I will get nervous meeting. Like, I don't care. I'm not that guy. I could meet the most popular person. I don't care. That doesn't do anything for me. I would be nervous around Shawn. Like, he's that much to me. And he viscerally pissed me off last night because you killed the segment. Because you can't keep your... Can I say the A word? Or do I need to...
Yeah, I've said bastard. It's fine, yeah.
Well, no, I want to make you money. He could have kept himself down. Because it just... I don't mind if you lay on the ground and you scream like Ric Flair screamed. That's fine. You don't have to be knocked out. But at least put over the two most protected moves in the business, right? Like, other than the Black Mass, other than the Black Mass and Corbin's End of Days, like, nobody kicks out of the punt or the RKO. And like, he just got up immediately. Like, what is going on? But no, I like the way they told the story. It wasn't so much necessary, but the way they booked the show made you think it was about Shawn. But to me, Shawn was at least the most important proponent of that situation to me.
Yeah, it served the purpose building it up for the pay-per-view, even if the big moment had come the week prior. This was kind of like a mini carry-on, getting you ready for the pay-per-view. Right, so now we're going to go through the card in order. Again, we could talk about that for quite a bit longer. I've got way more notes, and I'm just like, no, we're 40 minutes in. Go through the card. So as I said before, with this being the first time doing the Raw review with a guest, I'll have Rance jump in every now and then, so you don't get bored of my voice. Like for every segment, obviously, I won't. I'll make sure he gets his words in for each bit we get to. So sticking on the same topic, we kicked off the show with Drew McIntyre. However, right off the bat, the WWE intro distorts. Damn you, Retribution. Like, this week's episode of Always Sunny in Philadelphia, the gang take over the truck. As they just go in there, start smashing stuff up. We'll get to that in a second. Drew McIntyre, one thing we've not talked upon, he's now got swords at the start of his theme. Do you like swords at the start of his theme?
Yeah, like, look, man, stop messing with the music. Like, please.
Yeah, that's my opinion. Yes.
Like, the fact the swords are they're not that bad.
Yeah.
But like when Vince made Ricochet's entrance an actual sound of a ricochet,
yeah,
that's when it's just too much. Yeah, so the swords ain't too bad, but like it's too. Just stop.
Yeah, like with like for me the worst one was Aleister Black with his kind of raising.
Oh, the creaking sound.
Yes, I thought I hated that. And for me it was when they started using Ricochet's like Ricochet noise as the stinger. Then he got his theme. I was a bit more fine with it, but the worst one I think was when they were trying to figure out when to use it, and I think he just pulled down his hood and then it was pew 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 pew. And it's like, nope, I do not like that.
It's really bad.
Like with Drew's theme, like. Yeah, Vince likes his stingers. Like, I'm not as much of a fan. You don't necessarily need that. You can have a hook. You don't need a stinger if you've got a hook. And like for me, the drums were already that hook for the theme for Drew. Like he didn't need the swords, but he is like a kind of. I forgot. You also already brought up the Wallace kind of links to there for Drew McIntyre.
Yeah.
So it's not as bad as like Ricochet's or Black's because it does. At least fit a little bit and not kind of take too much focus away, and he quickly get to the theme anyway. It adds to the drums rather than full on taking a distraction away. Like it's one of those ones where at first I'm like, I don't actually mind. It's fine.
Can I stick up for Vince in just this one regard? Isn't a claymore actually a sword?
It is, yes, so that works.
Okay. But for those of you at home listening. This is a real thing. There's a thing called the Pavlovian effect, which is that when you hear music, the first few notes give you a reaction. That's why if you think of the greatest wrestlers of all time, or the most popular wrestlers of all time, the second you hear their first notes, you get a reaction. The glass breaking with Shawn Michaels, the If You Smell with The Rock, right? Even more recently, the band tuning up with Daniel Bryan, or the Sierra Echo Hotel Echo with Shield, like those things. New Japan does it when you hear the coins, Rainmaker, or the really bad horror music start with Switchblade. Like you get feelings. So Drew McIntyre's song was just a song, right? Since they took out the original bagpipe entrance. It was just a song. So now it has, you call it a stinger. It's ridiculous because they like to change anything, but I see why, because it'll help garner a reaction. And it may work, but it's just, stop changing everything. Everything don't need to be changed.
Yeah, you don't have to fix what isn't broken. I mean, YouTube, we're on YouTube now, it's like one of those platforms where they've released updates where it's like, that wasn't necessary. And then there's other ones where it's gone, actually, that change does help, yes. Like, I'm on YouTube Studio right now, and it like changed like 2 weeks ago. Something a bit longer than that. So and it's one of those where I'm like, yeah, I'm fine with it, yeah, actually quite, it's a bit more convenient, yeah. Thank you, YouTube. Thank you, Google. Don't disable my monetization.
Please don't. Give us money.
And could you have a word with WWE? They're claiming videos for just featuring pictures. I don't like that. It's quite irritating. I'm just getting into it, and then they start doing that. I did see other people say it. Also, apologies for earlier if you're watching YouTube and the video stuttered. I'm doing this on a laptop, and it did not enjoy me scrolling all the way up from the bottom of my 3,000 word Word document, scrolling from the bottom to the top. It did not like that. Again, I've got Skype, YouTube, the streaming thing, Microsoft Word, and I got quite a bit open. I don't need that open though. Oh yeah, just close something else. Anyway, after that we got we're talking about Drew McIntyre at the start, weren't we? We're meant to be talking. His swords is what kind of took us off on that one. Retribution was what the thing had to get to next. So they at the start of this show they were in the production truck, and he saw just random graphics being thrown up during Drew McIntyre's promo. This was a running theme of the show tonight, I felt, where you had one thing happening and quite often there'll be something else going on at the exact same time, kind of really difficult at times to focus on it. Sometimes it worked, sometimes I couldn't focus on either thing that was happening. In this occasion, I felt like it after the break, where you saw Drew McIntyre, then I was kind of fine with it, and it kind of did work. It meant that all of his words that he was saying, I wasn't listening, because I was watching all the graphics come up. It was maybe a bit too much for me to focus on what he's saying. So if they didn't want me to focus, it tells what the thing they were going for. If they didn't want me to be able to focus, then that's good. You nailed it. If you wanted it to be a little bit annoying, but I could still hear what he was saying, then complete failure. It depends which feeling they were going for. I want to say the former, just because the pace they were bringing the stuff up was way too fast for any normal human that isn't Kevin Dunn to be able to focus on and follow it. like seriously, you would need. Nope, can't make drug jokes. Just realised. Let's move on from that one. To be able to slow down your perception of reality, I don't need to add any more. So it would.
You'd have to have the real life John Morrison entrance filter.
Yes, yeah. Again, we don't need to give any more context. Everybody knows what we're talking about. To be able to follow it. And that's how Kevin Dunn does it. No, I'm not saying that he does. Just how could he take in that much information at such a high speed? It's impossible for a normal human. Anyway, either that or he's a robot. Anyway, so with so it was all going off and everything. They beforehand they played the recap of Orton and Flair in now with Bloom Effect and Emotions piano to give over the serious kind of feeling of this. But we get all this random shots happening, and we end with the screen going fully to black after we see Retribution in the production truck making threats. They throw one random wireless thing onto the floor. So maybe snap it, I think they did as well, and the other one with a bat saying take it off air, and then they do it. So screw your go home speech, WWE champion. We've got to do this at the same time. We're doing this thing. This can't wait till after SummerSlam. We've got to do it now. After the break, because it went to black and it stayed there for about 5 seconds or so before going to adverts. After the break, Tom Phillips gives us a long commentary with a video of Retribution smashing up shop in the production truck. He's then saying the group demanded Raw be taken off air. My first thought, so what's this then? We're back immediately after the ad break. Like Retribution taking the show off the air, but only for this conveniently timed ad break, and after that it's all fine again. So, I don't think I've ever seen the show goes black and off the air at the start of the show. It's an odd one.
It was very different.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, very different.
Yeah, it worked in that one. Obviously, I can take the piss out of it we're taking off for this ad break. We're going to revenue help me with your revenue. We're actually really kind to you, WWE, but you can't see it. You're too blind for it. And then after that, the thing that I was praising as well, Drew McIntyre was hyping up the other babyfaces in the gym. And again, the other thing this PC has been really good for is little character moments. And this was another one with Seth Rollins sarcastically clapping his way in. Obviously, he sees himself as the locker room leader and would take offence to Drew taking charge like this. It's like, yes, of course he would. And you don't have to Baron Corbin him. Where he's just like, no, I am the leader here. I am the king. Seth Rollins is way more than that. It makes all the sense in the world that Seth Rollins' character would react to that kind of circumstance. So, yes, there's that. But Retribution, again, another one where it's a bit of a mixed one. Like week one, they made quite a statement, quite a kind of arrival along with god awful camera work, but it was memorable. Like super memorable, like a chainsaw in the ring. That's not. It's just that visual alone.
That's
super memorable.
Yes.
However, by Raw, the very next Raw, they were throwing cinder blocks through a glass window, which was the same glass window that the Street Profits drove the Viking Raiders through like 2 weeks prior. So they've only just rebuilt it. They're not smashing to destroy. They're smashing to be inconvenient.
That's a reoccurring theme.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to see that keep happening.
Also, they smashed the window, and you think, oh, so maybe they're smashing the window so they can then go through the window, get into the... No, they're smashing it and then leaving. There's actually no reason for the thing they're doing. It's just, visual thing. There you go, thing smashed through window. And it's like, okay, fine. They're doing random stuff. And that first week, you felt like there was a direction. Like, even though it's random chaos, they're kind of targeting and going after specific things. Then as the weeks have gone by, it's become less and less and less to the point where I just don't. When they're coming up now, it's kind of like, oh, what are you going to do this week? That's kind of less and less impactful and more the run of the norm. And that's what this week was. Like, if you want to cause chaos, you go to the production truck. And I did like a little bit. It's one of those things where when they came back from break, it's with MVP. And he was in the ring trying to give his promo, and it stayed on the main cam. Like, I really liked that, where it stayed on the main camera and it didn't cut away. And as the segment goes on, like, one by one, the cameras get picked up off the floor and the shot comes back into commission. Like, yeah, like, that's fine. I liked that idea. Like, I see what they're trying to convey here. It makes sense as long as you don't think about it. Like, don't think about it. Don't think about it, Matt. But why would the cameras be the thing in the production truck that doesn't affect the actual in-ring cameras? They're not connected by a massive wire. It's like, no, don't think about it. It's fine. But again, the feeling they were trying to convey, it felt different. That was original. But again, cinder block through a window you have no intent of entering. It's just a bit weird in terms of the previous clear direction the group had. And obviously that makes me a bit worried that the visuals they're trying to convey were of recent happenings. Like, oh, that's the image that we've seen recently, rather than that's a clear direction for these characters. That has me a little bit worried. Maybe after SummerSlam we'll get some direction. Maybe in the Thunderdome. Sure. In the Thunderdome we'll get something. Like, we've got drones. You can do your very own Vanguard angle.
We've got drones. That's a fix. Yeah, surely though, right? I mean, surely there's got to be some type of reveal on SummerSlam, don't you think?
Yeah, and I don't know, in terms of you'll never see it coming, I don't know if that'll be tied to Retribution. I don't know if the leader will be revealed, if Selena Vega and the poisoning angle, if that's going to be somehow tied to it.
That's clever. Samoa Joe seems to know all the information.
Yes, he's become the guy that knows everybody. And, I mean, everyone loves Samoa Joe. Of course he'd know everything. It's fine.
Matt, you were watching Attitude Era, right?
I've gone back and watched it. I didn't start till 2005, but I was aware of its existence.
I remember you being a newer fan, but I thought you had seen some of it. There was a guy back in the day named Just Joe, who literally just was around to tell all the gossip. And so I guess Joe is now just Samoa Joe. Just a quick hit on the Retribution thing. I'm excited, and let me change that. I'm interested in the possibilities, and it's been 3 weeks, so I'm not going to turn on something in 3 weeks.
Oh yeah,
but they're really hot and cold because, like you said, the first week was fire. That first Raw, then that first SmackDown, then they're doing like Riot Squad level chicanery, and then like on SmackDown last week, they break in the back, beat up everybody. God bless Drake Younger because he took a hell of a bump. and then do all that where the whole locker room goes to find them, and then they dip. You said you think they had a clear direction. They've never had a clear direction to me because they haven't said a word. They just like breaking stuff. So that's what I'm looking forward to. This inevitable, whether it is Sunday at SummerSlam, whether it's Friday or Monday, or whether it's Payback, which is next Sunday. Somewhere in between that, they're eventually going to have to come up with some type of reveal of either a member or a leader or a mouthpiece or something, and they're going to have to give a demand or a reason, because you can't just keep doing this random stuff. And why does the Performance Center not have security? And I don't mean like small guys who work there.
I was going to say,
where are the cops?
Did you not see SmackDown with their incredible security? When they cut to them, like, oh, we've got our heightened security, and he cuts to just 2 random lads just stood there in front of on the door. Like, oh, what if that doesn't stop them? Oh, I don't know what will.
Right? Well, that'll fix it. Yeah. I will. One more thing to say. Shout out to the fact that, remember the first 2 nights, they were like all 5'9" guys that looked like they were kids that like, were celebrating after a high school football win. Like, if you've noticed, every week there's been more and more people, and they're of varying sizes. That's one thing I really enjoy about the angle, because it makes it look like, you have no idea how many people are a part of this thing.
Mm.
You know, if it was the same 5 people, then yeah, this might get old pretty quick. But like literally every week, you got 2 more people, or the other. What was it? God, was it Monday or one of those days? Yeah, no, Friday, because they messed up the first match between E and Morrison when like the girl got in the ring and then 3 people were on the apron and then there was like 12 people right there by the commentary table and there's people in like that's legitimately terrifying when you have no idea who they are and it's that many people. So that's the interesting part. We just got to get that. We got to get there.
Yeah, we'll wait and see what. There's not really much you can pass it on, rather than you can say from week to week there. Because I think phrase I would use is targeted chaos, and it just became chaos. As in, that's kind of how I feel it's become over time, and I quite like when I say some direction. And after SummerSlam is the perfect time to do that, or even launch it at SummerSlam in one of the angles, or if you really have to, you what were they called? Barrett's group Nexus. That's it. You Nexus it where they kind of have an effect over the entire show, or something like that. Yeah, I guess.
No ties, gentlemen.
Yeah, it's like don't touch. Like a Riot style Nexus, I guess. Oh, that's my fear. As in they go like the chaos.
Well, let me tell you what it is. It's aces and eights.
Oh yes. Oh, you can reveal them one by one, and yes,
it's aces and eights.
Yeah,
but just Bully Ray won't have to take the whole 2 hours of a whole Impact to explain why it makes sense because none of it made sense in real time.
Yeah, and you don't have to make anybody marry a Hogan. It'll be all right. Just leave it. Just don't do it. I want to be saying there's no need to go that deep into the con. It's all right. That was commitment, Bully. I accept that. But he didn't need to go that far. It was like not in the script. Fair to say he got carried away with that one. In kayfabe, I know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so then we got the Hurt Business coming out, and as I said, interesting way of filming it to begin with. This is a full-on main shot, and then over the course of time throughout the promo, the cameramen at ringside picked up their cameras. MVP runs on Apollo. The champ isn't tough. Lashley is tough. Shelton is tough. If the champ continues, he'll end up with his friends in catering. Continues with the conspiracy that Retribution somehow linked to Apollo. The lights flickering purposely to put Porter off of his game. Then the champion Cruz arrives. Says MVP accusing him of being behind Retribution is low. It's just him trying to play distraction ahead of their match, which is followed by a great response from MVP, who hits on Apollo's WWE career so far. A full run of constant stop-starts, hot and then cold. Porter sees fear in Cruz's eyes. Fear of losing that United States Championship, because he knows as soon as he does, it's back to catering for you. Cruz fights back, of course. That's why I'm fighting so damn hard. The champ lays down a challenge. If Shelton is so tough, then if he can beat him tonight, then both Benjamin and Lashley will be banned from ringside at SummerSlam. Cleverly playing into the ego of the Hurt Business. What do you make of the Hurt Business and I guess MVP's run during this lockdown period?
Oh my God, MVP has been a godsend. I've always been massive MVP mark. MVP lives in Houston, right? So like, so I think he's amazing. He's given new life to Lashley. He's given new life to Shelton. If we're keeping it 100%, he's given new life to Apollo, to Cedric, to Ricochet, and Mustafa. But Mustafa is great by himself. He doesn't need anybody else. But like, he's single-handedly made all these people viable again, right? Like, we'll go. I know we're going beat by beat, but we'll go into this. But think about it. Like all of the people I mentioned had 3 or 4 segments on the show, where like a month ago they wasn't even on. You know what I mean? So like it's all because MVP has concocted and webbed and woven this big web of storyline after storyline after interarching storyline, and he's just been fantastic. And I'm ready for the story and him and Apollo to be done. But the Hurt Business is such a dope idea, and I'm just happy it's not Nation of Domination 2020. Like it's almost a. This doesn't help with the idea that WWE is still in TNA storylines from the early 2000s, but this is almost like Beatdown Clan 2020.
Yes, in my notes I've put, like, even when I was creating like images and things, I call them like the Hurt Business Beatdown or something like that. Just a little note to myself. It's just yes, especially as both Lashley and MVP were in that group. Like, that doesn't help.
Exactly, yeah. and Shelton is playing the role of Kenny King. Yes,
100%. Yes,
but they're fantastic.
Was Samoa Joe was initially in that group, if I'm right?
Joe was the fourth. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
I think Joe got hurt or Kenny got hurt. Some kind of way, one of them got hurt because they were all four went together for a very long amount of time. But those were the four members.
Yes.
And it was Low Key in there for a second.
Yes, he definitely. Yeah, because he returned, I think, with that angle. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, great. Really rated Beatdown Clan, and this is like a upmarket version where they're all CEOs, and I've rated so much. And MVP on the promos has been absolute fire, and very, very clearly doing an amazing job. Like, he's very, very clearly getting everybody over. Like, his character is the thing that I really like going into SummerSlam. If you can get MVP by himself, he is totally beatable. It's only if there's Lashley or Benjamin. Like, he could take the opportunities from them and pick up the win. But all these young talented guys, the guys that he tried to recruit, he did it for a reason, and they can legit beat him. And it's kind of like a consistency that I can really enjoy. Like, you normally only see this kind of consistency, I guess, with a Heyman type, where they try and recruit somebody, and then when they fail, they then don't go, oh, well, you're crap anyway. Like, no, like, there's a reason I tried to recruit you. You're really good, and I fear you for that. And I've got these big lads behind me. There's kind of, if it was 1-on-1, you would beat my ass. And I've said ass. You censored yourself for my money.
That's true. My only concern is, and tell me if you agree, that MVP's on the run of his life. But do you think that him being the kind of front man of this group and being not only the front man on the mic, but the front man in the ring is stifling Lashley a bit?
I feel as long as, like, my prediction for SummerSlam, I've actually got one for this one. As long as Apollo Crews retains at SummerSlam, because he has MVP on his own, and in every single match they're building up this group. Whenever they have MVP by himself, he gets beat. Like, that is the run of the match every single time. When Lashley and Benjamin come in, then MVP can get some offense in, or within the rhythm of the match when they're kind of like tagging in and out. But by himself, he gets beat, he gets pinned, and that's been the rhythm of it every single time. So at SummerSlam, when they're by themselves, I feel like they've set up the story really well for MVP to get beaten. Like, you do it again. Then Payback is 1 week after, which is insane. They're doing another show 1 week after.
Yeah, wow.
But you can book Apollo Crews versus Bobby Lashley for that show, and Lashley wins. So you get your big kind of feel-good moment at SummerSlam until it all goes to crap the very next week, and then you can have Lashley kind of go over there and beat Apollo Crews, because Lashley and Benjamin are the two that can win. Like, again, Shelton against like the lower card guys, but Lashley can destroy everybody, which sometimes is to detriment to fan favourites. It's kind of like a kind of sometimes. But I personally, that's what I would do. I'd have MVP lose, but ultimately the Hurt Business win because Lashley wins. But if MVP wins at SummerSlam, then that destroys everything I just said. It just erases it all. Then I am with you in a bit of worry. If then the focus is like really on MVP. It's like, no, he can beat these guys. He's an amazing wrestler. It's like, no, they've nailed character work as well throughout this period. So I feel like MVP should lose, specifically because of that.
Agreed.
After that, we got Apollo Crews versus Shelton Benjamin. The match was set up. Was building nice until R-Truth runs into the ring, chased by the ninjas, of course, and they all run through the ring and up the ramp. Apollo using the distraction to catch Benjamin off guard, and therefore MVP has to wrestle by himself. Post-match, the Hurt Business attempt a beatdown. See, I told you, wrote it in the notes. But Apollo's amigos make the save. Ricochet, Alexander, and Mustafa Ali all help fight off the heels. Those weeks of building MVP as a totally beatable heel, if only it's not for Lashley or Benjamin. It's about to pay off. I will say throughout the entirety of this, I've been getting high CPU warnings, so hopefully it's not too laggy. If I'm right, the audio is always fine. It's just the video that gets a bit bleh. Before what? Oh, yes. So post-match, the Hurt Business lay that down, and they're stomping on him. They make the save, and before we move on, R-Truth runs back down the ramp along ringside and right into a big boot from Benjamin. 1, 2, 3, and we have a new 24/7 champion. The group semi-enjoy their consolation prize. MVP grabs the mic, refusing to go out like that tonight, lays down the challenge for Cruz to pick 2 people for a 6-man, which again sets it up really well because, wait a minute, he's got 4 friends. I wonder how that'll work out. Again, a nice little build that's happening, which we'll get to. Backstage, it's the lass from The Bachelor. She's still there. It's week 3. Why are you still there?
Ooh. Boo.
She's still there. Garza is chatting her up, but LL Ivar, that made me laugh when I thought about that.
I love that. LL Cool Ivar. That's his new name from now on.
LL Ivar walks in and steals her hand, inviting her to Raw Underground with his massive leg of meat. There's no way to not word that as a massive double entendre. That's what he's got. I was trying to figure out a way to write it. It's like, but that's what it is. No other way for me to do it. The two, Garza and Ivar, have a match set next. A nice character bit for Garza, whose ego simply cannot take someone else bettering him with the ladies. And I will always remember that segment for giving me my nickname for Ivar. Just thank you.
LL Ivar and the turkey leg. Yes.
So next up was Ivar versus Angel Garza. No faffing about. Neither get entrances, which was a running theme this week. And still it felt like... It's a weird one. It felt like some things got time and didn't... Actually, there's one thing on this show which suddenly it makes all the sense in the world why some things getting cut and some things feel like there's not quite enough time. Like, no entrances. I immediately thought, is this a sign it's going to be a quick one? No, it's a sign that this will run throughout the night where loads of people don't get entrances. Garza using the Zelina distraction to take out Ivar with an awesome low-running dropkick in the end. Like, a fun few minutes, mostly leading into the post-match reveal that Zelina really did poison Montez Ford. Or did she?
Dun, dun, dun.
So it's one of the things where they're showing her, like, oh, she's definitely doing it. But her back is to the camera. You don't physically see her doing it. They've given themselves an out. And I... Like 2 weeks ago, I said, I'm totally fine with the poison thing as long as it doesn't end up with revealing it was actually Zelina. She was just being a bit of a heel. Like, at the time, I called it kind of like a lazy direction to go in. Like, now we're here, I see it as a fine, small story. Like, I think when I said that, it was contained in the Raw episode where random stuff was happening all over the place. So it felt like it might have been something bigger. Like, that's still an option, like as I hinted at like earlier in the show.
Yep.
But like on a pay-per-view or post-Raw show kind of twist, you can go that way. But like, I'm not looking for it to be that big a thing anymore. Like the other pieces of chaos falling into place, like I'm fine with this being a little bit of mid-card fun. I don't really need it to be like a massive thing anymore.
Well, it did 2 important things. One, it allowed Bianca to come back on TV and have something to do. That was important because the entirety of their careers, Bianca and Montez have tried to stay separate, but it gave Bianca a reason. If you remember when Bianca debuted the night after WrestleMania, it was because Zelina was getting involved with the Street Profits, and at the time it was Garza and Austin Theory, right? Second reason is Los Ingobernables de Zelina, the whole stable, however many of them you want to count, and the Street Profits have feuded since WrestleMania. Like, we needed a reason for it to extend, for it to continue to not only keep going, and I hope this is it at the end of at SummerSlam, but to keep going to this point and to get to a boiling point. It's only so many times you can fight a guy, before you're like, well, that's enough. So now you poison the dude, you lie about it, you get caught, and dude comes back and you get found out. It gives some steam finally to go into one of their matches that now, if this is the blow off, you want the faces to win, but you don't know if the heels are going to win or not because is Montez healthy?
Which kind of got hinted at like later in the show a little bit. But I guess my only thing from this is the Street Profits / Bianca Belair seem to be winning all the time in this feud. Like Andrade and Garza have got wins against the other tag teams, so they have had victories to get to this point. But in terms of getting me invested of can the faces overcome this, they've won every match. And they did it again this week, where they won both matches. So kind of like in WWE momentum, that must mean that they're losing. However, they've beaten them at every turn. So I don't really buy the heels going in. My investment's not that high. Can I put it like that? Because the faces have won every single time. And as I've said, it's moved from, could this be a bigger tie-in thing with a poisoning thing? Or is it just a small contained story? Like my investment level varies massively different in terms of like what that outcome is with that one. Number 4. So there were 2 things massively talked about when I turned on Twitter this morning. And one of them was when I logged into Twitter, there were lots of complaints about Mickie James making her return to WWE, but in a match where neither got an entrance, and for most of it, they were paying a lot of attention to Seth Rollins arguing with Samoa Joe. So they weren't even paying attention to the match. And I said earlier in the show, there was a moment where there were 2 things happening at once, and I couldn't concentrate on either. So I wasn't able to follow like either story really until they focused on one of them. That was this bit here. So they started with the match, and like it's like personally I thought, when they did this with the no entrance again, I was like, is this them playing off Retribution as the previous match didn't get entrances either? Like, have they messed up the Titantron? But commentary would have mentioned that because it's WWE, and Apollo's entrance worked fine, so that makes no sense. There's nothing at all. So it's just time cutting. It is. You got to fit in Raw Underground, which is my least favourite thing every week. We'll get to that when we get to it. On this, time cutting on this very filler feeling show where there's lots of stuff happening. It's struggling to focus on stuff as well, which makes the show feel quite tiring to watch because there's so much going on. You're being assaulted in the senses in quite a short amount of time, and there's hours to go. Like I really felt it this week. Like I wouldn't call this my weekly show fatigue point. Like where after I was saying I felt the shows were too long, I thought it made sense to track when exactly that feeling happens each week. Like this wasn't that point for me, but it certainly was the match where I started to tune out of the show. Like you put a match in front of me and told me it doesn't really matter, but I also wasn't able to focus on it. Like after Seth Rollins walked out to confront Joe and James and Talia literally become background action, with the latter winning via Lana shenanigans, leaving James down on the floor and unable to get in before the 10 count. I couldn't focus on the match. I couldn't pay attention to what Seth was saying. In the end, the segment became a nothing noise for me until they started focusing on one thing at a time. And I was able to catch the main thing they were going for with Samoa Joe and Seth Rollins. Samoa Joe has info on Rey Mysterio and Seth Rollins wants to know what it is, damn it. That's it. Did you have to do that during the match, though? If you are... Because the other thing is, you could come out afterwards. Doesn't that undercut the result of the match? They've undercut it anyway. Does it... what they did already did that. Yeah.
So you're right. First and foremost, I really want to trash WWE for the Mickie James thing because that's just really disrespectful. And look, so much of this doesn't really matter. And, largely what's one entrance. I get it. But, and Mickie was there to put over somebody. I completely get it. But Mickie James is a legend. Mickie James, if she retired today, would be put in the Hall of Fame next year, right? So this is her first match back in over a year. You could have given her the respect of an entrance. It's a respect thing, right? And she still could have lost the exact same way. In fact, I don't have a problem with her losing. I don't have a problem with the focus of being off her match. I don't. I'll explain why in a second. But I have a problem with you not giving... An entrance is the one thing that every wrestler has to themselves. That's the one thing, right? Because finishers are copied. right? Moves are copied, taunts are copied. In some cases, music is copied. But your entrance is yours. And it's the one thing that you show to the crowd first and foremost about who you are as a performer and what the company thinks about you. She couldn't even get that. And that really bothered me. The reason why the rest of the stuff didn't bother me is because since this Retribution thing has started, and yes, I don't think this had anything to do with Retribution, but since this whole Retribution angle has started, they've tried to make these shows feel heavily chaotic. And you said it yourself, it's very frenetic. It's a lot of information being thrown at you. At the same time, the time cues are off, things of this nature. The camera angles in some matches are off. In some matches, the graphics don't come. When MVP came out, the graphics didn't come out till he was halfway down the ramp. You know, things of that nature. There are flashing lights. And while it may not all be tied to Retribution, it makes the show feel chaotic. So at least there's an overarching theme. If it's good or if it's bad, at least it's consistent. And the show was very consistent with its overarching theme of chaos. You mentioned R-Truth and the Ninjas running it out in the middle of the last match, right? He does it every week, but it was extra this week because it wasn't just that, but it happened again later on in the night, and there was the post-match shenanigans with Benjamin getting the title back, and then the promo. It just, everything felt chaotic. And that may not work for a lot of fans, but at least it's consistent. At least they're doing it throughout the entire show, and I can accept that if you're consistent. So that's why that didn't bother me so much with Rollins coming out. It made it feel almost. Think about it like this: if me and you have an issue, but you and I are in the same building, are you gonna wait to come see me? Or the second you got the issue with me, you got to come see me, right? So I never understood, just thinking about it from a non-kayfabe perspective, if Rollins got an issue with Joe because Joe is spreading in his mind lies that Ray is there, why would he wait until there's nobody in the ring to come out and have a segment? I'm gonna just come see you now. Like, this match isn't important to me. You are, and yes, it hurts the in-ring product. But they clearly don't care about what happened between Mickey and Natty, you know? And it sucks for them, but at least in the semblance of a story and in the semblance of an overarching theme of a show, it made sense. So, you know, that's how I'm looking at it, which makes it make sense in my mind.
Yeah, I feel like for me, last week, they showed they can do this kind of show, this frenetic kind of show, and still pace it well. Like, overall, because last week I didn't have a fatigue point. If I'm right, I only checked how long's left in the main event, and that's fine for it to happen. Then you're at the end of the show, like that's perfectly fine. And like, compared to the week prior, where they were doing lots of stuff and they introduced Raw Underground, and like, what's going on? Like, for me, that show was really difficult to get through. Like, I really struggled to get through the show 2 weeks ago. Last week, a breeze, blew absolutely through it. Even though the pacing was pretty similar. But they were more, I guess, the way they did the pacing, it meant that you as the viewer didn't get tired or something during a segment. It wasn't the roller coaster that WWE normally do, as in like the ups and down, peaks and troughs kind of momentum, which means you're a bit like, well, this is awesome. Oh, this is a bit slow, type of thing. Like, they did it a lot better last week. This week again, I felt it was a bit too much, like frantic action. Slow it down. Oh, it's crazy, isn't it? It was too much for me. I would have quite liked for it. Just you either build the kind of speed of it, or you pace it a bit better. Last week they nailed it. This week, maybe there's a lot happening. But there's a reason I've got just shy of 3,000 words. A lot happened on this show, but not a lot of it received much time. So you kind of like, you're like blasting from one thing to the next thing to the next thing to the next thing, like 90 miles an hour. And it's a bit much for a 3-hour show, which I guess is the other thing. Like, this kind of speed, like, because Asuka was fast. And if you did this kind of speed in the 90s, or whenever they were still doing the 90-minute show, like on SmackDown, for example, you do this speed on SmackDown, it's fine. Because the show overall is like, what, 1 hour 15, 1 hour 20? When it's like that kind of length. Yep. And compared to a 3-hour show, where you hit that same mark, but you've still got a full hour left, it's like, whoo, right. Like, you got to pace yourself a bit differently. Something like that. So that's why I felt like it was a bit of an issue this week and 2 weeks ago, especially 2 weeks ago. Going at that crazy speed, but you've got so much time to fill that I'm just knackered. I'm just ready for like the next thing. And it sometimes starts to feel like you're jumping from one thing to the next. They can really make it feel like filler because you're not really spending time on anything. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to Sasha Banks and Bayley. My absolute favourite thing during this lockdown period. Both taking on Asuka this Sunday. Couldn't be happy about. I think I saw some people complaining, "Oh, Asuka's facing both of them," and I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, I love this feud. It's my favourite thing. I'm happy to just enjoy this." It's like when you're watching a TV show.
I'm one of those complaining, by the way, but
we'll get to. I'll give him the in a second. So it's like when you're watching a TV show, and you might be enjoying it, and then you go online and you see loads of people complaining. Oh, why didn't they do this? Oh, why didn't they do that? For me, Banks, Bayley, and Asuka, I don't get that until I go online and see other people saying it. Like I'm able to just sit there and enjoy it. And as you know, WWE is not my number one, and I feel like that helps me kind of like not get invested in anything. If they piss me off, it doesn't matter. I've still got my other wrestling. But with this, I'm generally really enjoying it, and I'd be really sad if that, especially Banks and Bayley, if it's not the same after this era. Like if the focus shifts to something else and they don't get the same amount of time dedication, because they've been nailing it, and they've just introduced Shayna Baszler, and I feel like they're doing her really well as well. Like it's in normal past circumstances, I wouldn't have trusted them to do the 4 Horsewomen, but on this current streak with the women, I totally do it. Like for me, they feel main event. Like the characters are so formed, I care so much about where things kind of swing and go in that, where I trust them to do the 4 Horsewomen thing. Like you trust NXT to do it, because there is that care and attention to detail. They're not rushing through it.
Sure.
Like Banks and Bayley, in the past, they would have already broken up. But here, no, they're playing the long game, and you really care about them as a duo. Anyway, so they are both taking on Asuka this Sunday. Nice little touch where the commentators were portraying it as the heels having to run the gauntlet against Asuka rather than the face that's in both the matches. Like, that's really putting Asuka over as a threat, which I really like that.
Yeah.
Banks and Bayley, obviously, they're putting their challenger over as more of an idiot. But the fears there in the background, behind the foreground, like the foreground of apparent confidence, like actions louder than words, and like all of that. We got to see that in the match as well. They take the piss out of the fact that they took out Kyrie, so their challenger has no friends anymore. But when Asuka comes out, she is joined by somebody else. She has a partner in the form of Shayna Baszler, and convinces her via to get their match together against each other. First, they need to deal with Banks and Bayley by working as a pair. Yes, love that reasoning. Like, they want to fight each other. They are not friends, but they're fighting together so that because they want that to be their match. Like, yes, love it. Yep. Which led us into our tag team match of Banks and Bayley versus Asuka and Baszler. Like, I always enjoy the Raw Women's Championship scene matches the most out of everything on the show, like week after week. The one consistent throughout the WWE PC era for me, I guess Drew McIntyre. Sometimes it depended on who was in there with. I guess like Dolph Ziggler, it was fine, kind of thing. But but Banks, Bayley, Asuka, and Kyrie for a bit, and now Shayna Baszler, it's just all worked. I really, really enjoyed it. Baszler slotting in really well for this tag team match, which gets me excited for what they're maybe doing. Full of fight and taking it to the might of Banks and Bayley's tag offense, trying to ground her, until sudden Nia Jax jumping out of nowhere. Outtaken is Baszler, which then leads to the heels doing a strong enough job that for a lot of the time they're only just taking on one half of the opposition team. Ultimately, paying the most when both were back up at the same time. Baszler running back down to rejoin the match. Asuka recovering as well. Asuka ran in to launch with the kicks and locked in the Asuka lock at ringside on Banks, who's then trapped. Followed up by Baszler grabbing Bayley into the Karafuda clutch for the win. Baszler comes out of this strong. As I try and hold in a burp, I failed. Baszler comes out of this strong. Banks and Bayley's reigns going into the pay-per-view seemingly in strong danger. Only thing to hold them up being Asuka has to compete twice. Even if she is an amazing competitor, she's doing 2 matches. Can she beat both of them? And I like Banks and Bayley's kind of working. They're kind of back and forth. Well, she can't beat both of us. Well, who gets to beat her first? Ha ha ha! Flick back hair. I've got long enough hair to do it, but it's got the headphones on. Anyway. So I've ran on about Banks and Bayley. Rance, do you want to run on about Banks and Bayley and Asuka and all this for just a quick minute?
Yes, please. And if you don't mind, I don't want you to think that I don't like the story. I think the story is fantastic. My only qualm with anything involved is the fact that there are like 20 women that aren't being used, and three women are the entirety of the championship of both championship pictures. And then when you remember the fact that, oh yeah, by the way, they have the tag championships too. So it's no qualms with the story being told. I think it's a fantastic story. And I think the way you said it was spot on. But Sasha Banks and Bayley have had the run of a lifetime in this 6 months or so. But yet, even though what they've done, and they hold all the gold, and they've been fantastic and beating everybody, it's being framed that they got to beat Asuka. That's really showing you how dangerous Asuka is. It's really well told. I just would like more people involved. I would like... Clearly, we're going to some type of Shayna and Nia Jax fight match, something, right? But I would like to see more women involved, because there's so many people that are sitting on the sideline, and I don't mean to bring in another company, but so many people are criticizing AEW for not even using women. And here we go, that WWE's using women well, but it's just three people in three major championship scenes. So that's my only qualm with it. But the story is fantastically told. This was the match of the night. I love the fact that Shayna, man, look, we've never seen Shayna Baszler as a babyface in any capacity. She wasn't a babyface when she fought. She wasn't really a babyface on the indies, and she was never a babyface anytime in WWE. The beauty of the best characters, to me, and this isn't just in wrestling, but this is in any medium of entertainment, are the ones that, even when their alignment changes, everything about them stays the same. Like, I think those are the best characters because they're not true. They're not true to an alignment. They're true to themselves. Shayna Baszler as a de facto babyface is just as vicious and dangerous as Shayna Baszler, the heel. The difference is that she has a different focus now. And that's all it is, right? And I think that is so fantastically done. And I was skeptical when I first saw her punch Sasha in the face a couple weeks ago and kind of set this chain of events. But then you watch it Monday and you're like, oh, makes sense. Like, and her babyface fire comeback sequence, whatever it was fantastic, right? So knowing we have the prospect of an Asuka Shayna match, if Asuka can beat Sasha, or if Asuka loses to Sasha, you know Shayna wants that belt anyway. Now Nia's back in the picture, and when she inevitably gets out of suspension, what's that going to be involved? As we'll talk about later, Shayna's best friends, Jessamine Duke and Marina Shafir, finally got called up, and they're ready to fight. There are so many interesting prospects, and it's all because of the fact that Sasha, Bayley, and Asuka have made this entire women's division must-see. Hats off. It is the best thing going in this company, and it's not even close. It's not even close.
It's great to see. Just have something that I'm this invested in WWE. I feel like sometimes there's nothing that's really grabbed me, but this is, and really, really like that.
Yeah.
Moving on to Backstage Mania. Right, just a run of stuff. Right, first a VTR recap of Rollins Mysterio. Second, Apollo and friends backstage are getting ready for the six-man. They decide who is going to be in there. Sorry, Cedric. And then Randy Orton walks in after they've gone and thinks. To ad break we go. Afterwards, Shawn Michaels and his NXT hat talk to Drew McIntyre. Tells him he's travelled too far and too rough a road to give up now. Drew thanks Shawn for being a huge part of why he's succeeding now. The time they spent together in NXT meaning a lot to him. Michaels reminds him he's earned to be where he's at. He ended the era of Brock Lesnar holding the WWE Championship hostage, and don't you forget that. I really like this. It means that when McIntyre runs out afterwards, it's not just because, oh, babyface champion's got to go out there and save the legend. Like, no, they've given that they've got a relationship, they've got a history. It makes sense that he would do it, and
well done.
Yeah, so that leads us on to the next thing. With continuing Backstage Mania, now with Liv and Ruby getting ready. The Iconics walk in. Billie Kay says she's not feeling 100%, so Royce will be replacing her. But the ending of this bit is the real reason for the segment, as it shows... Well, as Kay kind of just says, wait, what's that? And the camera pans to Shayna Baszler talking to her fellow MMA horsewomen / NXT mates in Shafir and Duke. And yes, it's happening. It's beginning. Are WWE actually setting up the MMA 4 horsewomen for the main roster? With the PC era finally coming to an end, has the time finally come for this faction? I'm personally down for it. Horsewomen versus Horsewomen is still standing there as a huge potential feud for WWE. They don't even need all 4 of them there. With Becky Lynch gone, you don't even need... You can do like a more low-key one, I guess. Make Baszler the focal point. Maybe. And they've been nailing the women's division as of late. So colour me optimistic in that regard. After that, I think I was saying earlier, in any past era, I probably wouldn't have really expected WWE to handle it well. But currently, as they're nailing the stories and the characters for the women, I kind of trust you to introduce more and kind of evolve this world, because the circling lot you've got at the moment are being done so well that, why not add to it, include more people? And that's what they kind of did. Nia Jax being in there a little bit more, Shayna Baszler tied to that as well. I'm totally down for it. Retribution week.
And I'm sorry, may I real quick?
Yeah, jump in.
The one wonderful thing that they're doing is there are layered stories.
Sorry, just drinking water.
Sorry,
yes.
There are.
Yes.
Sorry about that. There are layered stories with multiple women in multiple feuds. So it's it's not the men have 2.5 hours and then you got we'll give this woman one feud. We've talked. There's been just in this show so far. We haven't gotten any further. Just in the show so far, we've had Sasha and Bayley and Asuka and Shayna feud. We've had Shayna and Nia feud. We've had Mickey and Lana and Natty feud. Right now, we're talking about the Riot Squad and the Iconics feud. Now we're bringing up Marina and Jessamine because Raw Underground was made perfect for them because they had to learn how to wrestle, but they know how to fight. So it's so many nuanced layers that makes it's fantastic booking, and I know coming from you, that's something that you can't say often on WWE.
Yeah. Again, I feel like because WWE is not my be all and end all. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. They're not my number one. I'm not. Who cares? I'm not standing for them or against them. I enjoy wrestling. I know it's boring. Wrestling wins in the end. It's quite a boring statement, but and I feel like I have to kind of applaud these little things like that, and I trust them to go with stuff. After this, we got the Retribution recap. No wonder I saw others on Twitter saying this show felt like a filler episode, where a lot of time here taken up with promo packages and backstage interactions. Even if I personally enjoyed the character stuff set up, even I was this is a lot of stuff, back to back of recaps and promos and backstage kind of talking segments, just a whole chunk of time taken up with it. So I could totally understand if people checked out. Just stop, God, this show feels long kind of feeling. That's what I mean by pacing.
And it's a go-home show.
Sorry, what?
And it's a go-home show. It was really random.
Yeah, it doesn't... In terms of... Go-home show really is to get you excited type of thing. But this is the kind of... Yeah, this is the kind of stuff you get in those first, 1-2 weeks of the build. And we're getting it all here. It's a bit... My excitement's not going to be that high when you're doing back-to-back stuff like that. It's a pacing thing as well. You can stagger these throughout the show. You don't need them all to be back-to-back. And that's what I meant. This is the slow I was talking about earlier. What earlier is high speed and frantic. This is right down. Just people just talking, and then you move to someone else where it's people just talking after you've seen mental action. Just going at a crazy mile an hour. Anyway, so that's our Retribution recap. Then we got to the match of Ruby Riott versus Peyton Royce. Another short, no time wasted, enjoyable outing from these two. Both nailing their roles with these matches. Like, even if they are lower card, low stakes stuff, again, the wrestlers themselves nailing it, even if I'm not invested in the story. So I can at least applaud that. Accidental kerfuffle between the baby faces again. That's easy to say at half two. The chemistry is not there as it is for the Iconics. Peyton's finisher is still brilliant. I'm just hoping this ends with the Riot Squad eventually able to work together rather than entering a feud I'm not really invested in. Because I don't...
Yes.
I don't... Because you used the name earlier in the show as kind of a... taking the piss out of Retribution's not really chaos. But... the Riot Squad never won anything. They were never successful. Their rioting was a bit... like, Ruby Riott made it to number one contender against Ronda Rousey, which was like a peak moment for them. And they felt, oh, maybe in the future Ruby Riott could climb a bit higher. But no, like, injuries stopped any chance of maybe finding out. They never able to build any momentum. So now they're building this off. We need to get the group back together. We've got to get back on the same page. It's like, well, you were never that great when you were on the same page. So why do I really care? And I just don't buy that Riot and Morgan are this kind of duo that need to get back together because, again, the Riot Squad was never successful in the first place. It's like Drew McIntyre trying to get 3MB back together. It's like, why?
Well, the difference is, to them, it's not about winning, it's about friendship. So if this was about them getting back together because they want to win or they need to win, I'd agree with you. But Ruby wants to get back with Liv because that's the only person Ruby ever really cared about in kayfabe, right? And Ruby turned on her, and when she turned on her, she felt like, well, my karma was I went through 6 months of hell because, like, I've lost everything was good. I need my friend back. And so once they're able to get their friendship back, maybe they can, turn over a new leaf. So it's about friendship and not so much about winning right now. And that's why they're losing. Think about it.
That's a point. Yeah, they're too focused on their relationship rather than actually trying to win. I will say the Iconics have done an amazing job kind of being the heels holding all this together. Even when Bianca Belair played Liv Morgan for a few weeks. Just in that role, it was like
the role of Liv will be played by Bianca, yeah.
Like they've been really good, and seeing the reports of Vince apparently really seeing Peyton Royce as a potential future star. It's like I feel like both her and Ruby, when they've wrestled in these matches, they've done really well. And it's like 2-3 minutes, but no second is wasted. You can really see how talented they are. And like it makes sense you can continue this, just give them a bit more time, see what they can do. They've proven themselves at this level, why not see what they can do at the next one? And eventually that's the kind of thing we can then elevate them to the kind of higher part of the card as well. So yes, thumbs up all around. I've always liked the Iconics, they've always made me laugh. I know there's something about their accent. I've seen quite a few Americans saying that they can't stand their accents. And I'm just like, I don't know if it's just an American thing. Like I found them hilarious.
I love them.
So yeah,
they use their accents in such a grating way, but I love it. I love that stuff.
And shucks, it's Raw Underground. It's 10 o'clock, everyone. It's time for Raw Underground. So Raw Underground has mostly reached straight skip for me. Like, it's not my thing. It doesn't appeal to me, which is fine. Like, not everything has to appeal to me. WWE is a variety show. It's just that this particular thing doesn't really appeal to me. Have consequences outside of just a fight happening there, and like you don't hear anything else outside of that world. Like, I have no reason to care. There is no consequence to the fights that are happening there so far. When I wrote that's true. Obviously, at the end of the show, you saw Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler actually have that confrontation, and for me that was the first time like a big outside thing came in and influenced it and then had consequences to reap onto it later. Like, I thought they were doing that with the Hurt Business in that first week, but then they came out the week after and made no reference to it whatsoever on Hurt Business, on Raw Underground. There was no reference to the Hurt Business claiming they owned the place. Like, it's like it never happened. It just kind of moved on. But Baszler and Nia Jax, that happened later, again, after I wrote those notes and I didn't go back to correct them, with Jax Baszler. That was the first time there was some knock-on effects from Underground. And obviously, have to wait till the Raw after SummerSlam to see whether we really do see something. But like Eric fighting somebody, and then Eric and Dolph Ziggler fighting each other, it's something about the shoot style type of thing where it's never going to appeal to me. And the closest that style has was Bloodsport. Josh, is it Josh? Josh,
well, it was Josh Barnett.
That's it, yeah. So I really
at first it was Matt Riddle, but then it was
yeah.
Josh Barnett.
Oh,
Yeah.
Riddle versus Suzuki. So what a substitution. But yeah, look into the story of that and then watch the match. So like that show I enjoy, but it's once a year. And I watched it WrestleMania weekend, and I never watched that style again until like the WrestleMania weekend again that year afterwards. And I feel like that style for me is kind of perfect. Raw Underground to get 2 minutes of it every now and then, and for me, putting Raw Underground in there this week, you felt it. There was time cut away from other things, and yes, Raw Underground's not that long overall, but it is things like entrances are going, matches are getting a little bit of time cut off of them, and therefore they don't get as much time to flesh out, therefore you don't really have as much investment in them because they're going at 90 miles an hour. But again, it's the style of the fighting wrestling, shoot wrestling type of thing. It's just not going to appeal to me. So it's a difficult one for me to review. Because it's, in terms of WWE being a variety show, this particular thing is not for me. I'm just... I've never been able to get into MMA, and I guess that might be part of it.
I am a big MMA fan, so I guess I have to understand because I get it. Everything isn't for everybody. I will say, in terms of the angle of the Raw Underground thing, the first 2 weeks I get it. The first 2 weeks were random, just kind of we're doing this because hey, it's been done. This week was the first week they advertised fights. Like they advertised Riddick Moss and Arturo Huas. And they advertised Eric in a fight. And Ziggler was there, and Ziggler and Eric had an issue, which led to Ziggler fighting Ivar next week. So there are some semblances of stories being told. And then, of course, the big Nia Shayna thing to not quite end the show, but, was kind of like the big hook at the end. So there is some semblance of stories being told, but again, with all due respect to how you feel, because I get it, it's the third week. Like it'd be different if we were talking like we're a year in and it's still like a big bunch of nothing. It's the third week. They had to establish the situation. They had to establish what it looked like. They had to establish. Think about it. Riddick Moss hadn't been seen on TV for months, right? They had established that he was even a member of the roster. And then now he had a fight, which we probably won't talk about since you didn't really pay attention to Raw Underground. But you know what I mean? So at least there's something being told. And what I appreciate about Raw Underground is it's giving different people a chance to shine in a different way. Dolph Ziggler has looked fantastic. And we know he can wrestle. We know he has the perfect smarmy heel-ish gimmick. But we forget he can legit shoot fight. He's a world-class amateur wrestler. And this has been really good for him. It's been really good for some of these guys who haven't been used, like Arturo Huras, who literally can kill you without just looking at you, stuff like that. And Babatunde, Dabakato, he's been languishing there for 6 years, finally being used. Shayna's been put in a way now where she's looking like a real threat again. Marina Shafir and Jessamine Duke, the whole reason we haven't got the Four Horsemen versus Four Horsemen to this day, because they're not as big a star as Shayna and Ronda, and they weren't good in the ring. They were terrible. They were god awful. Yes, they could do the basics, but in terms of throwing them out there and saying, "Hey, go do your thing," it was not good. But they can fight. So this is a way for them to ingratiate themselves back into the kind of the public. And you might see them a few times, be like, well, hey, they're pretty good. So next time they stand next to Sasha or Bayley, it's not just a big waste, right? They actually can run some fights. So I get it. I have no qualms with you not really liking the kind of the idea, but it serves a purpose. It does. And I think this week is starting to show that. And hopefully going forward, it'll show more. As long as it's its own contained entity, because I don't want to take over the whole show, because then it'll be a problem, and agree with you. Have it be a contained entity that is not completely separate from the show. It needs to be involved with the show, but be a contained entity. I'm good, and I think this week I think it's the best it's worked so far.
I would say because I brought up Bloodsport, and because I generally enjoyed those shows, because it's been a criticism before of, well, if this is real wrestling, then what's if this is real fighting, then what's the rest of your show? And for me, Bloodsport was the perfect middle ground, where you are still presenting it as wrestling, it's just a different style, and this one's more presented. It's weird. You watch it and you go, "That's Bloodsport." It's really weird. Like, I watch it and get that similar kind of feeling, but also they're trying to make it feel like a Fight Club. Also, my favourite thing, because my favourite conspiracy theory I've seen on Twitter was somebody saying, like a big brain idea, was we've seen this with the Fight Club, and we've also seen the kind of anarchy being caused by the group of people. Is Shane McMahon experiencing Fight Club the movie? And he's actually having the split thing and the anarchy. Like, this isn't true. Like, there's no way they've done this. I just thought, oh crap, you've got the anarchy group and you've got Shane McMahon running a Fight Club. What if Shane McMahon's running the anarchy group and he's having a Brad Pitt moment? And it's like
he's Tyler Durden.
Yeah, he's the plot of Fight Club. Which I thought, that's a massive big brain idea and I love it. But
wow.
But I've now
somebody was super high when they thought of that.
Like, you have to be on Kevin Dunn's level to be able to conceive such an idea. Not saying that I've got to make so many statements. I was like, we are not saying that Kevin Dunn actually does partake in anything, but still, it's such a I love seeing that idea. Like, it's such a big brain idea. Anyway, so then that leads us on to Dominic Mysterio and Rey Mysterio. Didn't need to say the same name twice, but I did anyway. I'll refer to the dad as Pirate Mysterio, who, with an emotional promo and not being able... Yes, I'm taking the piss out. You lost an eye, you're a pirate. And not being there to take the beating in the stead of his son. But after that, he had to be there to protect his son now, and that's why he's here. Dominic declares that he's ready for the fight this Sunday. Rey is incredibly proud of his son. Seth and Murphy appear on the screen, criticises Rey for putting his son in harm's way, calls him selfish. He can't understand for the life of him why Rey keeps doing this. This all could have been avoided if he just accepted his role for the greater good. The tragedy is it's going to be the Mysterio legacy that will end up being the ultimate sacrifice for the greater good. Mysterio then challenges Seth to come down. The Messiah just laughs at the idea, like, come on, you've got one eye and your boy can hardly walk. So before coming out, Seth reminds him, remember, like, you asked for this. In the ring, it looks like Rey and Dominic realise the danger and they leave the ring. In run Rollins and Murphy, but it's a trap. As Rey distracts, gotta get my Star Wars reference in, Dominic grabs two kendo sticks and goes to town on the Messiah, chucks the other to his dad, and the Mysterios run riot, laying in shot after shot onto the self-proclaimed locker room leader. He's not in front of lockers. A mini mirror of last week. Slight retribution, pardon the pun, after last week's vicious attack. I really enjoyed this. And again, it was quick, it didn't linger too long, and built to the pay-per-view really well. This was one of the better go-home moments, the entire Seth Rollins thing. Every beat for his character made sense. And it all kind of, you get that feeling of, he could get his ass beat next week. Dominic's got the odds even because his dad signed a new contract. They could actually go for it.
That's the only reason, right?
Yeah.
And it's been officially made a street fight, so Dom has a chance. But with the exception of Sasha and Bayley, this has been the only segment, the only match kind of build to SummerSlam that every single segment that they've had has made you want to see this more. And it's fantastically. But look, man, how often do you get a guy Dominic who's gonna have his first ever match against who may be, if not the best or top wrestler in the brand, one of a handful, right? At the second biggest pay-per-view in the world, and nobody's saying, well, I wonder if the kid's ready or not. We don't care. The story's been told so well. It doesn't matter if the kid can't do a headlock. He can swing the hell out of a kendo stick. That's all that really matters right now. And it's so well told, and Dominic seems to be built for this. He's not completely ready, but he's ready enough for this moment. I'm hoping Murphy and Ray play a part in this too, and just give me all the shenanigans and have this a good, crazy spectacle of a match. But it's Rollins is on fire. Every touch is gold.
And like, I've been impressed with Dominic at every single turn. It's like they're giving him like little bits of like more and more to do, and at every single turn I've been impressed. Like, it makes me laugh. Like, if you ever look at a kind of Twitter post from WWE advertising Dominic, or like on Facebook or whatever, again, only go to Facebook if you want to laugh. It will be my example in terms of opinions. But like, as you see quite a bit of negativity. It's like, oh god, like Dominic Mysterio. Ugh. But I've genuinely been impressed at every single turn. Like, and I generally didn't know there were people. Obviously, there'll be people thinking that way, but for some reason, it hadn't caught on with me that would be that amount of people who are like against the idea of Dominic getting this kind of push right now. And I'm like, but he's impressed me at every single turn. Why would I don't have any reason to be against this? Like, he's been great. Really impressed with him.
Well, you know how people are. For number one, if you don't watch the show, you're just reading his results. Of course, you're gonna see, oh, a guy who's ever wrestled before is doing this. And secondly, you know as just as good as I do. We're a very fickle bunch. So we're all in the same breath. We want new guys to eventually to debut immediately and the top of the card, but not that new guy. Just my new guy. So that's what this is. This isn't nepotism. The kid's been training for like 4 or 5 years. The kid has been on camera, on TV, in not as a wrestler, but in like as a backstage person for over a year. Like, he's built up to this match, so like he's earned a match. This is all this is. I'm pretty sure he's going to become a regular wrestler. The kid earned the match. Let him have the match. You said it perfectly. He's done excellent at every turn. Let him have the match. What is dirt?
Yeah, and if anyone's going to be able to carry him to a decent match, it's Seth Rollins. Like, I trust like him or AJ Styles, and the fact that he's got one of them, like, is incredible for his first kind of outing in their career. Again, I don't know which way to go with it. Maybe you go the Mysterio route of your debut SummerSlam, you lose to a veteran, but you did it well. You lost well. You lost in style. Toy Story.
That valiant loss. Yeah,
falling with style. It's the divine. Again, got to reference one of my favourite childhood movies. Anyway, so I said we could talk about that more, but we're edging in on 2 hours, which is, with such a long show. Right. So MVP is backstage with Cedric. I really liked this character point. Porter stirs the pot after Alexander was the one left out of the 6-man tag tonight. He once again talks about his so-called friends and how he spends so much time enjoying catering, and that's MVP to Cedric. It doesn't have to be that way. And then afterwards, Cedric shows his frustration. Really liked that. You're sowing the seeds for something to happen at the pay-per-view. Like, something might... Because I was saying that if MVP just wins, then that erases everything I was saying about Apollo. Unless Cedric Alexander does something. And you've already established that Lashley and Benjamin can't be there, but he didn't say anything about any member of the Hurt Business. What if Cedric Alexander... They set it up as well. Like, generally, because MVP's constantly sending out feeders because there's so many talented wrestlers. I really enjoyed that little note. Because then you're expecting maybe something could happen. You're not as certain about Apollo's retention because somebody might turn. Yeah. Anyway, after that... sorry, go on.
Oh, I'm sorry. And if you're Cedric... We're about to talk about the match next, I believe. If you're Cedric and you see what happened in the match, you would understandably be even more incensed.
Yeah. But before that, we got Raw Underground Part 2. Moss versus Arturo go at it as Shane shouts, Nice, yeah, hit him. There we go, that's my review of the Raw Underground. Next up was the 6-man elimination match. And I was like, when I heard this, there's there's only 30 minutes left. There's a whole 30 minutes left. Well, not a whole. There's only 30 minutes left, and you're doing a 6-man elimination. And I know that you got your Shawn Michaels, Randy Orton, Drew McIntyre segment to come at the end of the show. So how much is this going to be fleshed out? We'll see. So it's Apollo Crews, Mustafa Ali, and Ricochet versus the Hurt Business, MVP, Bobby Lashley, and Shelton Benjamin. What a crop of talent in this ring. What a crop of talent for Bobby Lashley to quickly go through. Like, poor Ali. Poor Ali and poor Ricochet. With under 30 minutes left and that segment still to come, they had no choice but to run through this match at 90 miles an hour. You know, aside from not book this kind of match on a show with as much time left. But for me, the building notes worked well ahead of the pay-per-view, as long as you can take the fact that you saw Mustafa Ali and Ricochet just get beaten in quick fashion. If you can swallow that pill, the building notes for Apollo Crews MVP were done decently enough, specifically for that. Of course, there is that bitter pill. You got to swallow at the same time. Crews able to fight past Benjamin. Then the continued story of MVP being beatable if you can get him on his own. Finally, with Crews pinning him as well. Finally coming up against the steep mountain in Bobby Lashley. Apollo put in a strong effort, but Lashley caught him with a spear for the win. And, poor Apollo Crews, which again sets up my payback idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfectly. Yeah. You were ahead of the game.
Sometimes I feel so smart. I feel like vindication. I'm mimicking the GIF from Brooklyn. The rest of the Hurt Business returned to pose in the ring with the lights flashing in their name ahead of SummerSlam. Yes, kind of like a perfect ending note, and you assume it'll swing one way, but you're not entirely sure. Talking of things swinging, as I mentioned, there's only 30 minutes left of the show. We've got another segment to come, and we've got another match, suddenly. 24/7 Championship. God, this really didn't help the show, like with the issue of it feeling pretty long with so many things going on. The 24/7 Championship was on the line. Cedric Alexander versus Akira Tozawa. Seemed a bit like time filler, which is odd, but this certainly will link into Sunday and Alexander's relationship with MVP. The match itself, a tad of ninja nonsense. Lumbar check, Cedric retains. I don't really feel like that's
By the way,
what to say.
Have you thought about how many people got to be signed to the Performance Center as trainees to have enough people to be ninjas and faceless Retribution people? It's a lot of faceless people.
Eventually we'll see. Not the ninjas. We don't need to know the ninjas. But
No.
If you want to say the faces the mystery will be revealed, and then you actually do the ninjas instead and just piss everyone off. If you really want to, you can do that. So Cedric retains, but pay dirt out of nowhere. Shelton Benjamin snatches back the title for the Hurt Business. Poor Alexander. What did I say about being relevant for this angle on Sunday? He looked like he might succeed for a second, but then the Hurt Business always wins. I really like that. Really nice little note. Promo for Ivar versus Ziggler on Raw Underground next week. And then we physically go back to Underground, and Shafir is in there, generally featuring her to her strengths. We've already touched on this. Featuring the horsewomen in that light, that's perfect. You're showing them to their strengths, how really you're meant to do wrestling. You don't try and homogenize everything so everybody's got to act a certain way. Like Ricochet cutting bland promos against Brock Lesnar. Why is he doing that? Yes, that's what everybody else does in WWE. Yeah, but it doesn't fit his character. It's what everyone does, though. But it doesn't fit his... Oh, stop it. But so it works here with Shafir. Her and Raw Underground, it's just a perfect fit. Same with Duke, I'm assuming, when we get to see her in there. Nia Jax runs in and clobbers her from behind. Baszler jumps in and the two circle before Nia runs off with a little cheeky kick before she gets out there. And Jessamine Dukes gets in there too. And we have our second shot of the three horsewomen, or three of the four horsewomen, in a nice little moment. We've already, who is back. He's recovered from poisoning, or has he? We'll find out.
Unnecessary.
Yes, that's true. Yes, in terms of you hinted at it at the start of the show. If you're trying to create intrigue for the pay-per-view of will Montez Ford be 100%? Well, the answer is yes, because you've seen it. So now it's just a straight up tag match, I guess, because you've seen it 100%. A straight up tag match where you've seen the babyfaces beat the heels every week to the show. It's like, well, where's the investment here?
No less. Clean.
Yeah, it wasn't them falling out. It wasn't the heels falling out, which they have been doing in previous weeks. Like, no, this is meant to be them on much better footing, still losing all the time. But because of Raw Underground, you don't have the time to do their set. It's an odd one. Street Profits behind the plexiglass because F the reasons for the barriers being there in the first place. This was my how long is this show moment of the night. Because don't forget, this is within that same final 30 minutes. This is they had 4 segments in the final 30 minutes. Can you see?
I had the same thought.
Yeah, like it's a lot. And these final 2 bits, don't need them. Just extend the 6-man. It's an elimination match. It would have been fine. I get the main event.
Completely agree.
I get the main event was short, so you could have added stuff, but just extend the 6-man. It needed the time. It was a decent back and forth. Like, both of these guys are really good. Like, I was just so tired and not really taking any of it in. Like, Montez Ford and Andrade, I think they did good stuff, but I wasn't remembering any of it. It was just going over me because I was ready for the show to end. It's a pacing issue. It's not a length of show thing, really. It is more to do with it was so badly paced that you needed to go from the 6-man to the main event. These 2 segments just shouldn't have existed. Bianca Belair causes the distraction, slams Zelina down hard onto the ringside mat. Ford capitalised with a roll-up for the win, and Street Profits are back in full swing just in time for SummerSlam, and no intrigue. So who's going to win? If the heels win, then that's not in kind of the flow of how anything's gone. If the faces win, that's totally within flow, but there's no intrigue. So,
but the heels will probably win because reasons.
Yeah, it's WWE. The heels are going to win. it's that rule where if the baby faces are winning so strongly, that means the heels are definitely winning. That's the WWE rule.
And whoever wins on the go home show must lose on the pay per view. That's an old school Vinceism for you.
Yes, so that's our prediction for that. And that we finally made it to the end of the show. I'm assuming really that the length is due to our massive half-hour tangent at the start, talking about all sorts of stuff. But a massive thank you to Ray Cash, who's joined me for 2 hours straight to talk about this show. So thank you for coming. Do you want to plug all of your stuff?
Well, thank you. I've been a lot busier since I've been home for the quarantine. So yeah, you can of course find me underneath my box at It's Ray Cash, REY as in Mysterio, CASH as in dollars. I host a podcast, Outsiders Edge, at Outsiders Edge CS. Running gag, but whoever owns at Outsiders Edge, Imp will send you a shirt if you give me the handle, please. I also host I'm also a member of the 3-Man Weave podcast, sports podcast, at 3_Man Weave. All of that's part of the Chairshot media network at Chairshot Media. Always use your head, and yeah, Black Lives Matter.
And I will be, I plug my stuff all the time. Follow me on Twitter at the Damn Implicat. Read my columns whenever I post them. I've done one in the past 2 months over at lawsofpain/wrestlingheadlines.net. You can find all of the LOP Radio reviews over there as well. We've got all the other shows on here, including the Dynamite After Dark, which is our post-AEW Dynamite show. WWF The Legacy Series, going over the history of the WWF, its entirety, all the way from the start to 2003 when it died. Can't recommend that show enough. We've got Maple Leaf History, going over Canada's history, which has just debuted. Hopefully will be able to be posted on the Laws of Pain main page relatively soon, so you can see all the find it a bit easier. And I've got a busy week ahead of me. So tomorrow, I don't know when it's going out. I think I'll do some editing for it. Tomorrow I will be recording I don't know what to call it. We're calling it Worst Case Scenarios Roulette. So I'll be joined by Ash from the Wrestling Shorts YouTube channel, where he did the black and white cartoon drawings of the stuff. So I'll be joined by him to do a Worst Case Scenario Roulette, where we've divided the matches in half, and we pick 4 each. And it's like a would you rather, which would be the worst case scenario you have to go with. And we have to cause as much pain as possible with the worst case scenarios and make it the hardest thing to think. And we're often quite silly, so we'll see how it goes. So it's probably good that I might be doing an edit for it. I think I'll try and get that up Friday or Saturday. because on Thursday I'm joined by James Boyd to review NXT, so that's still to come as well. So I'm not leaving the WWE PC entirely. I get to see the Thunderdome from Friday, but I'll be returning every Thursday to review NXT. So there's still that to look forward to as well. And I think that's everything. So yeah, I need to remember to set 5 minutes aside just to plug all the stuff I got to get through. So I think that's everything. Oh, and I'm also going to be live after the SummerSlam, what am I, Bret Hart? After SummerSlam on Sunday for LOP Radio Aftershock. I'll be live here on YouTube and then out on the podcast. Are you doing anything for SummerSlam for Chairshot?
We have the Edges doing our preview this Thursday. Well, it'll drop this Thursday, or this Friday, rather. And, I don't know if we're going to do a post show or not. Maybe we'll do something. It's a big show. We'll figure it out.
And I'll be doing it blurry-eyed. It's SummerSlam is the show. We've got these notes, but it's 4 or 5 a.m, so I can't read them. So it's always fun. It's always fun doing
nice.
Anyway, I could say thank you for listening / watching, whatever, especially if you've gone all the 2 hours through. It'll do a wonder to our viewing time numbers. That's what we found out. Like, we were getting view numbers so we could get so we technically could get monetized, but we weren't getting anywhere near view time. So in I come with this stuff. It's like, only if 2 people watch it, that's 4 hours. It just blasted through. Anyway,
nice.
Thank you for watching. All that stuff. Like, subscribe. Is it the bell thing to know when a video always goes up? There's the iTunes rating whenever you're listening to it. If you're on podcasty world, it's 3 a.m. I'm losing my words. So thank you for listening. And with that, I bid you adieu. Adios.